Joining us right now is someone who is he is an expert on this. This is his field. Representative Mike Waltz from the 6th Congressional District in the beautiful, sunshiny state of Florida. It's good to have you. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service as well. Just to let everyone know, he's a combat decorated Green Beret, and of course, he was also a former policy advisor in the Pentagon as well. Congressman, I have to get your reaction to some of what we've been hearing from DOD, from the State Department, from Pentagon, there from people like John Kirby, that we're going to go back and we're going to analyze what happened and figure out what went wrong. I think we kind of know what went wrong. I mean, it seems like everybody does. Your response to this?
Yeah, I think the every veteran, every Gold Star family, heck, every everyday American that I talk to is waiting for who is going to stand up and say, I screwed up. This was on me. Here's what went wrong. You're right. It doesn't take an army of think tankers and analysts and academics to figure this out. That we pulled our military out too quickly. That we had fantastically wrong assumptions about the staying power of the Afghan army. Although myself and others said months ago, when you yank away their air support, logistics support, intelligence support, and maintenance support in the middle of a fighting season, it's not going to go well. Anybody who has fought alongside the Afghans knew that. When you close down our main air base, and when you see city after city after city falling and the Afghan army folding, that you don't send back in our air power to, one, buy us some time, stop the Taliban offensive, and destroy the damn equipment that they were taking, the treasure troves, the storehouses of equipment. So, the list is long, but at the end of the day, this sits with Joe Biden and his team right around him. And Dana, I want to remind everybody I can, the same team Biden has was Obama's team. Mm-hmm. And this was the team that was responsible for Benghazi, thought the Bergdahl trade was a great idea, yanked us out of Iraq, that led to the ISIS caliphate, and thought the Iran deal was a good deal for America. And at the fundamental level, they believe appeasement and concessions and giveaways to terrorists work. Yeah. And now we are where we are, and we have more dead Americans, and America is less safe. And it sits with Biden and his team right around him.
What do you make of the remarks, and we're talking with Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida, the remarks from, we had Jen Psaki, we played some audio from her earlier, and also from Millie and others, and Lloyd Austin too, who were going right up to the line of saying that we're relying on the Taliban, not only apparently for intel, but also we could carry out some strikes against some, I don't know if it's ISIS-K, I guess perhaps, but we could actually carry out some strikes based on Taliban intel. And then I just think back to the drone strike that was just carried out the other day, where there's a lot of debate as to whether or not ISIS-K was actually hit or whether it was a family that was trying to escape that was hit, according to foreign press on the ground. We're relying on we were bombing them 2 weeks ago, and we're relying on them now?
Yeah, the proof to me that you can't rely on terrorists to screen for other terrorists are 13 dead Marines, sailors, and soldiers, right? That suicide bomber, that ISIS suicide bomber, if we're to believe the explanation, made it through multiple Taliban checkpoints to get to that airport and get to those Marines. This is a slippery slope to disaster that this administration is on. And let me tell you, just taking a step back, for those of us that have had to sit across the table from these thugs, they have been working together with ISIS and with Al Qaeda for decades, especially with Al Qaeda. They intermarry. They have marriages of convenience in terms of goals and objectives. Yes, sometimes they may fight, different factions fight with each other, but at the end of the day, they are under one terrorism umbrella whose main goal and main mission in life is to wage jihad on the West. So this is just a bunch of garbage, and what it's trying to do is find a policy to explain its failures, right? And this cancer, that terrorism in Afghanistan doesn't stay in Afghanistan. This cancer is going to spread. It is going to follow us home. And pretty soon we're going to see the homeland under threat again.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I don't know how long we can keep up this appearance of nice relations with the Taliban that allowed Al Qaeda to use Afghanistan, as I said before, an Airbnb as their terror HQ. Here we're coming up on 20 years of 9/11, and that's the other thing. I mean, this was, I believe this was Jake Sullivan or Ned Price that had said this earlier, that we're actually considering maybe giving aid to the Taliban as though they're actually going to distribute it amongst the Afghans.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, they're going to try to be slick about it because we're pushing in Congress that it's illegal to give aid to terrorists, and number two, they clearly staged a military coup, which is also illegal. But they're going to try to be slick about it and pass it through nonprofits and NGOs, where we all know where all of that aid's going to end up. It's going to end up in the hands of the Taliban. What this really is, Dana, is a ransom. We left Americans behind. We handed the Taliban leverage on a silver platter in the form of hundreds of American citizens, green card holders, and their families. The administration wants to pretend that we have the leverage. We gave it to them. And every time they want economic assistance, humanitarian aid, international recognition, access to billions in foreign currency reserves, they walk down the street and take another hostage. And they have a long history of doing it.
That's just awful. That to know that it was so avoidable to do this, Congressman Mike Waltz. Do you think that there's going to be are Republicans in Congress, are they going to push for a commission to be formed? Because after 9/11, I mean, even though it was George Bush, and I was talking with someone about this yesterday, even though it was Republican president, Republican Congress, they wanted a bipartisan commission to be formed because it was really looking at the best interests of the United States and looking at national security. I'm just curious, is there any will, at least from the across the aisle, to have something like this come together for Afghanistan?
I was up all night with our defense bill. We just put that into the defense bill, and it truly is going to be bipartisan co-chairs, not this stuff. We don't want Nancy Pelosi anywhere near this to try to get to the bottom of this stuff, and we are going to conduct oversight. But at the end of the day, it's understanding what happened, but I want to get to who's accountable. So I introduced a motion to censor Joe Biden as commander-in-chief, a vote of no confidence last night. Of course, the Democrats were outraged and wringing their hands. But look, these veterans, these Gold Star families, these 9/11 victims, they deserve an explanation and they deserve accountability. They both come together. So we'll absolutely keep up this fight. I'm somewhere between furious and grief-stricken at any given moment, given that I've fought on the ground as a Green Beret. I had an interpreter beheaded at a Taliban checkpoint. I've seen these thugs machine gun girls' schools with the girls in them. They have not changed. They are the absolute despicable human beings. They're brutal. They just hung someone beneath one of our Black Hawk helicopters just yesterday. And if you don't think that they're married at the hip to Al Qaeda, you're wrong. They are going to come back and haunt us. What has me so upset now, on top of all of that, is that future American soldiers are going to have to go back to deal with this. Except they're going to have to go back to no bases. We gave them all away. No local allies to work with on the ground because they're all being hunted down as we speak. And a terrorist army armed to the teeth with our equipment. Taxpayer-funded night vision goggles, body armor, sniper rifles, and artillery and armor. And that is criminal, and that blood is going to be on Biden's hands.
You make a good point talking with Congressman Mike Waltz about really we know the losses that we've suffered, 13 service members, and then, of course, numerous allies, whether they were interpreters or informants. And that's one of the things that a lot of Americans who maybe were unaware of that relationship prior, I don't think that a lot of people realized that military obviously were putting their lives on the line. But these informants and interpreters, they didn't have to. They did anyway because they felt the way we do about the Taliban. And I was reading stories about, and the story that you just shared about your interpreter, it just breaks my heart. And these people would be serving right alongside you.
No, that's right. They were taking bullets right next to us. And Dana, here's the thing. they don't put just their lives on the line like our military service members. They put their whole family literally on the chopping block because if the Taliban can't get them, they start kidnapping, torturing, or killing their family members. And in the case of my interpreter, they didn't just behead him, they killed his brothers and cousins to send a message. They wipe out the whole family, the whole tribe. So, and these were people that we need. These were people that we were reliant on, that I wouldn't be alive without them. But that also going forward, that are willing to stand up and fight terrorism. And we're literally letting them get massacred right now as we speak with American-made weapons and equipment. It is despicable, shameful, outrageous. And again, somewhere between rage and grief at any one given moment.
One of the things you mentioned talking with Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida is really how we're turning. I mean, we're back at square one here. Actually, maybe even worse than square one.
We're worse.
Yeah,
no, we're worse.
Biden built back better, but it wasn't the U.S. It was the Taliban. He built them back better. Now that we're coming up on 9/11, I'm curious as to what our efforts to combat domestic terrorism. I mean, that's probably because not that we've become relaxed. Maybe we've become sort of used to it, but what I would imagine that's going to probably change here in the weeks and months ahead, because I feel like this relationship with whatever you want to call it, with the Taliban, it's not going to stay quiet for long. And now with ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda, well, now they have a great launch pad and they've got a lot of equipment. They can sell some of it to China. I was reading stuff being sold to Iran, reverse engineer it. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to have the ability, if they wanted to launch something here in the United States. So,
oh, that's right. No, that's right. Well, I mean, in the money piece, the administration's going to send in this humanitarian aid that's worth millions, and they're going to give them access to foreign currency reserves in the form of billions. And if you think that they're going to keep it in the Taliban bank account and not share it with the Al-Qaeda and all the other terrorists, right? If you think these weapons are just going to stay with the Taliban and not spill over to these international terrorists, it's farcical. It's ridiculous. It's naive. And at the end of the day, America is going to be far less safe. But to your point, this is the same team that yanked us out of Iraq too soon, led to the ISIS caliphate. But when we had to go back to deal with that Obama mistake, we had the Kurds to work with. Right. We had bases in Israel and Turkey and the Gulf states to go back and clean up the mess. You look at the map in Afghanistan, we have nothing. Not a single country in the surrounding region has agreed or will agree, because China and Russia won't let them, to house American forces. So, this over-the-horizon counterterrorism that Biden keeps citing is just, he's been reading too many Tom Clancy novels, and I know he's not listening to his advisors. It doesn't work that way. You got to be on the ground. Right. That doesn't mean you buy into this false choice that he's presenting when it comes to Trump. Well, because of Trump's May 1st deadline, I either had to get out or have a D-Day style invasion with Switzerland style nation building. Trump didn't want that. But what he ended up leaving was a small force of special forces and intel to fight this problem forward and not let it follow us home.
There you go. Last question for you, talking with Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida. Yeah. You mentioned Biden's advisors. A lot of people, I'm hearing from a lot of veterans and people like yourself who say every single one of these people need to resign. The House needs to be cleaned. Pentagon, DOD. I mean, I understand it, because they're down the line. People are held more to more account than leadership is, and it's the same people who have been making the same bad calls for decades now. Do you agree with that assessment that so many have made?
Yeah. So on the Defense Department part, I don't think we know yet how much was recommended and not listened to, right? Or whether they just made horrible recommendations. So that part I still want to figure out, and we'll conduct that oversight. But clearly, Blinken, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, Austin. I mean, they were all of the political appointees were the same crew that was around Obama with all of those same mistakes. And they, at their core, believe that you can appease and give away. And if you're just nice enough to our enemies, they'll be nice back. And they have got to go. And my fear is, Biden's a shell that they're feeding this garbage into. you get Kamala Harris, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same thing, but she doesn't have a clue about how this part of the world works either. So I think that immediate team of those political appointees have got to go.
There you go. Congressman Mike Waltz, we appreciate your service and continued service now on our behalf in D.C. too. Thank you so much.
I don't know which is tougher, Dana.
I know
days,
from the fire into the frying pan, you kind of don't know, or
right.
frying pan to fire, you can't tell.
I'm a masochist some days, but and there's Americans still there, and we're going to keep up that fight. We will never leave. We're not going to leave them behind.
There you go. And it's good to hear that. Congressman, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care.